Just because you have an understanding of the Bible in your head doesn't necessarily mean that you have Jesus in your heart.
Get right, get inside, get hungry, got appetite. Everlasting water, never get thirsty. To disputed lands, take a journey.
You are listening to Chad Schaefer on Disputed Lands.
Hello. It's Monday night. It's time for Disputed Lands. It's going to be a short show tonight, and it's going to be one with a very familiar guest. We have my friend the Duck, Ian Fiaducci, and Patricia, pinging me on the messengers. And anyway, tonight, before we get into talking here about what Duck's got going on here upcoming near future, wanted to let the Disputed Lands community at large know, while we're waiting for people to get in here, is the one thing we need to do is we're needing to raise just a little bit of money up front. Every year there is an annual fee for the platform we use to stream to YouTube. It allows us to do intros, banners, have these cute, cool little backgrounds, bring on guests, multiple guests, everything looking more professional than just me in front of a regular old camera. It costs about $240 annually, which, it's not a large sum, but if you guys could help us and try to help us cover that cost, we would greatly appreciate it. I am looking, basically just reach out to Chris or Liz. I was hoping they would have it up here. But if you'd like to make a donation, I'm guessing it's through their PayPal. Take on the World TV has paid for it this year. I've done it the previous couple years. We're now in our third year of using this platform. So if you guys can contribute, just reach out to Liz and Chris. It's about $240 annually. We've already paid it, but if contributors out there would like to help us out with that, that would be fantastic. Also, upcoming future platforms. As most of you are already aware, this platform, YouTube, specifically, a few weeks ago, banned us for about a week for reasons we can't say on here, or they'll ban us again from here. But anyway, they banned us. So we've been looking into, we had a Zoom meeting a couple weeks ago to discuss different avenues of what we were going to do. The one avenue that was looking to be the leader after I did some more I'm back. After I did a little bit more digging, it looks like the website I was going to use to stream to do the videos or upload it is not going to be able to handle the volume of uploads that we need to do to control our resources, so people can go back and watch past episodes or videos, or whatever. So unfortunately, it is looking more and more like we will need to go to a paid service, much like what Now You See TV has. Now, we haven't discussed this at all more. If this is, you're hearing it firsthand knowledge from me. Now, the downside, of course, is there's a monthly fee for subscribers, like $5, $10 a month to do that. That's the downside. That there is a monthly fee involved with that. The upside is, obviously, you have a much greater ability to provide content. The possibility, I haven't even reached out to him yet, possibly teaming up with other brothers and sisters who broadcast who have been shut down, like Through the Black. I'm going to reach out to Tom Dunn, say, hey, Tom, would you want, is Take on the World TV a shared paid platform, something that you would like to consider? Maybe somebody else, maybe teaming up with somebody like David Hebner, the Last Evangelist TV series, something like that. But it's looking more and more like, in order to have control over our content, to be able to control our platform, and to take away a lot of the obstacles that would allow other corporations to take down our information on the web, this is looking more and more like the way we're going to have to go. It's much more difficult, not impossible, obviously. It's much more difficult for entities out there who don't like what we have to say, for them to take down a private paid for corporation content that is our right, copyright by us. There's a lot more legal hoops that they have to go through to keep us down if we do something of that nature. The other benefits are, talking to Gary, is that you can create essentially a Take on the World app that can stream to someplace like Roku. If you have Roku, you could watch us on a Roku. We would be able to do full movies and features and things of that nature, articles, books, gear, you name it. All of that could be in one place. So the thing with that is, though, the reason it's a paid subscription is a platform like that costs about, I think if I remember correctly, anywhere from $1,000 to $1,500 a month. So it's like a mortgage to have a site like that. So you would need obviously lots of subscribers before it becomes self-sustaining, which means the individuals involved with putting up the platform have to come up with the expense out of their own pocket until it gets that way. So it's a big challenge. It's a big prayer. It's not a definite yet, but I want the Take on the World community, the Disputed Lands community, to be thinking about it, to be praying for it. Share your thoughts, of course, but these are decisions that we'll have to make here in the upcoming months if we're going to continue to be a viable program, allowed to speak the truth and not be blocked for it. So those are a couple things to get out of the air. Now for my guest, Duck is on here. He's got an upcoming project. He's going to be sharing with you some information on his own. It's going to be the show's going to be called Duck Duck Goose. No, I have no idea what the show is going to be called. That's funny. It's going to be Ian Fiaducci doing his own show on Take on the World, and he's going to be talking about Go Duck.
That's what I'm going to be talking about, is Go Duck.
Yeah,
let me ask you this, man. Was the Duck Duck Goose? Were you holding on to that? Were you waiting to fire that?
I've been waiting for that one for a long time. At least a year. I've been wanting to say that one on the Disputed Land show.
Oh man. Okay. Well, I'm glad you got to use it then.
Thank you. I am too. Before you totally got away and doing your own thing, and
yeah, I hope that was enjoyable and satisfying.
It was so satisfying.
Okay. Well, I gotta change gears here, because I was thinking about how the disciples were sending out letters to the churches, and I kind of feel like that's the struggles that they dealt with. We have a modern version of that now. We're trying to reach the audiences with our letters, and with that comes some struggles. So that's kind of where my mind's at right now, since you were just talking about this. I'm trying to change gears here.
Okay.
Okay. So I do have a few projects to announce. To some degree, right? So the first one obviously being the show. I don't actually have officially a title yet. I wanted to use the DNG 144, and I talked to Chris about it, and we agreed that it would be an okay subtitle, but it'd be confusing for newcomers that are not familiar with it. I wanted to use it so that it ties in the things that I've been doing for the past 7 years away from Take on the World. I wanted to be able to bring that together a little bit. So we are discussing something along the lines of like a draw nigh to the creator, draw nigh to creator series, something like that. So it's a nice transitional name. So it'll probably be something like that.
I like it.
Yeah, I like it too. It works for me. When Chris brought that up, he was like, I was like, we could try to do a Draw Nigh to God Ministries vibe. Obviously, not call it Ministries because it's a sub channel in the umbrella. And he threw that one out, and I was like, I kind of like that one. And I feel like it ties in with a lot of the other Take on the World stuff too, using the word creator for multiple reasons, because that's, obviously that ties in a lot of channels. So I'm very excited about that. Okay, so my perspective of the show, understanding that the Spirit can change my mind on things and redirect things as he sees fit. The way I see it is that it's going to be a lot like how Vicky and I used to do episodes together. So a lot of these shows are going to be aiming at what I like to call behind the scenes heart issues, trying to get to the root of problems, asking questions that are a little bit difficult and yet applicable. Not theological questions that are just simply to debate of, what does the scripture say about this, whether it's Greek or Hebrew, but rather how is that applying to you? What implications come from certain beliefs, things like that. I've been talking to Vicky Joy, and she, from what I understand, is agreeing to come do shows with me on and off. There hasn't been any kind of commitment as a co-host or anything like that. Not that I was asking her to do that, but she probably would be one of the common guests, one of the common people I'd be having on there to discuss things with me.
Right.
So, that's an overall view of what I'm going to be aiming for. We'll be getting into topics, that kind of range from evidence for belief to apologetics and things of that nature. And, we'll be going into some modern time things, but not, using buzzwords or buzz topics in a way that could cause problems for the channel, at least not until there's some kind of liberty in that sense.
So this show, though, you mentioned a little bit of the direction it's going in. You're going to be tackling a subject, though, right off the bat that you've been discussing with me this week. Can you share with me any details about that?
Okay, so the project, one of the projects, but the main project right now. Yeah, so I can go into that a little bit. So my wife and I were looking at making a calendar for ourselves and our family members. We've had a lot of family members and family friends and friends of family, etc., that are getting tired of asking us every few months, when are you guys doing Pesach? When are you guys doing Passover? When are you doing Sukkot? Where are you at in the calendar on this? When I Googled it, it said that Israel was doing this. Why are your dates different? And we've been explaining things with them, and we go through them and things like that. But at the end of the day, this year, they've been asking over and over again, can you guys just make a physical copy for us so that we can simply just look at the calendar and have that reminder instead of having to call all the time and text all the time and try to keep up, and that way they don't forget, because we have a lot of family members now for the last 2-3 years that are actually starting to observe feast days, and they're trying to observe Shabbat, and they're trying to pick up some things that my wife and I have been talking to them about for 6-7 years. So they're asking us about that, and my wife and I were talking about things that we would like on a calendar ideally for us. And we were discussing how a lot of our friends in fellowship are parts of many circles that have a lot of overlapping in the circles. And one of the things that we see differentiating in our circles are the different interpretations of the calendar. So my wife and I were discussing for ourselves, it'd be nice to have a calendar that gave us the dates showing the most common 4 or 5 calendars that most of our friends are on. So that way we can see, okay, so-and-so is doing this calendar. That means they're going to be doing Sukkot at this time. We're going to be doing Sukkot at this time, but maybe we can go see them during this or whatever. It gives us an idea to be able to see where everybody's at and what they're doing. And it also allows us to better understand what it is that they're seeing, to consider maybe I've got something wrong and vice versa, right? So we started discussing how we could do that so it's not just this big mess. There's a lot of calendars out there that have a lot of information, and you showed me once, Chad, and you're right, that thing is super impressive. I'm not going to try to compete with that thing. But there's a lot of information. So we were talking about how to simplify and make it so that it's easily readable, so that you can tell, so you're not sitting there looking at abbreviations of letters or little symbols and trying to remember which one is which. And we've come up with some systems. So we were discussing it some more, and we were praying on things, and we kept getting the urge and feeling and hearing that maybe we should open it up to the public. This is not something that we would be doing to make profit. In fact, I'm pretty sure profit is not a possibility with this project. And I mean, even if it were, we'd be pumping it into something else anyhow, whether it's, I've got some avenues I'll bring up here in a second. But my point is, we'd only be doing this for anybody else who's interested in having a calendar that's already presented for them, that has 4 or 5 different timelines so that they can see where everybody's at. They don't have to write it out themselves. And there's a few other factors that we're going to be bringing into the calendar as well that I think would make it fun. So one of the things that we had decided that we would want on our ideal calendar would be art by people that we know, instead of your, I always say Hallmarky pictures of like the Western Wall of Jerusalem, where you've got like a bouquet of flowers. And those pictures can be nice, but that felt so overplayed in a lot of the calendars we see, whether it's in our circles or outside of the circles. We've seen that a lot, and we would like something by people we know. We want to be able to look at the art and say, I know that person's a believer. Look at how much work they put into that, you know? And then we were discussing, not only would it be neat if we knew the artist, but how neat would it be if the art depicted what was happening during that month in terms of biblical events. So feast day months make it simple, but then these other months are a little bit more interesting, a little bit more of a challenge for us. So we've been working on figuring out which type of events would we want to be portraying in the artwork. And we do have a few artists that have agreed. I'm still looking for a couple more artists. I haven't heard back from a couple. I'm working on one to officially say that they are in. They have shown interest. They just want details. And I've already given you that person's name, Chad. I didn't want to say it on here yet until that person said they're officially in. I'm not trying to, you know, but I'm very excited because I believe that that person's going to agree. We've also gotten another ministry to agree to help us with some of the information, and I've proposed talking about a promoting of that ministry on the calendar, which is something I've talked to Chris about doing with multiple ministries. So I don't know where we're going to put it on the calendar yet. We're still working out those degrees, but it looks like, or those details, but it looks like we're going to try to be promoting multiple ministries, possibly a couple of charity situations. We're going to have artwork presented by believer artists, some of which many of the listeners here will recognize. I can almost guarantee that if you listen to Disputed Lands more than once in a great while, if you're familiar with Take on the World, you're at the very least going to recognize one name for sure. And there's a couple other names that you may or may not recognize. So if you know anybody who's a genuine believer that's an artist that you would like us to consider, by all means reach out, because we can still use a couple. And you know, the funny thing about this, Chad, is last year I had a conversation with Jake Grant, and he was asking me about what was on my heart. He goes, you know, what is the topic that God's pressing on you? And when I was talking to him at that time, there was a topic that God was really pushing in my heart, and he still hasn't taken away yet, and it's been growing. And it's been this understanding of, so I kept getting told to read Nehemiah over and over and over and over. And Nehemiah is a great book. It's not my favorite, okay? But it's a good book, and it has a lot of neat things in it. But Chad, there was a couple of nights where I was like, I don't want to read Nehemiah tonight. I want to read John or something else. And I'd go to lay my daughter down, and I try to read out of her Bibles for her every night. We try to do, she's got like a collection, Chad, something like 8, 9 children's Bibles. And we get a collection because some of them give more details than others. Some of them have stories that the other ones don't. So out of the whole collection, she has most of the child appropriate scriptural stories. And she has heard them all multiple times. In fact, that child knows scripture better than I ever did at that age, up until like my early 20s. She's already far surpassed me. And those nights that I didn't want to read Nehemiah, in fact, there was 3 nights in a row. Guess what she asked to read? 3 nights in a row. I didn't even knew that she knew the word Nehemiah. I know that we had read it a couple of times, but she said, I feel like we're supposed to read Nehemiah tonight. And she gets those moments. We've talked before about her anointing, Chad. how she's get these movements of the Spirit. And she just kept saying, I want to read Nehemiah, I want to read Nehemiah. So I finally gave in to like, okay, what is it about this? You keep having me read this. And the overall sentiment that I've received thus far, that I was telling Jake Grant about, is that it's time to start preparing the body to metaphorically start to call to rebuild the wall. Right? When they went to rebuild the wall, they were calling the genuine believers. They cut out those that wanted to participate that were not truly of Israel spiritually. Right? They said, no, this is not your lot. This is for us. So there's some factors to look at this, but they went and they built the wall and they worked together as a community. So that's one of the first things that I've been seeing, that I've been feeling pushed this past year, is that the body needs to start coming together as a community. So I think this calendar is one of my beginning steps in trying to push the body to come together. Look, we all have different calendars, but if we put them all together, we can see where everybody's at. We can consider everybody's dates. And possibly, Chad, this project might bring in multiple ministries to start talking to each other. At least I'm talking to a ministry that I've never talked to before. I've known of them. I've seen a couple of their things, but I've never talked to those guys. And now I'm talking to them, and they're opening up to me, Chad. They're saying, here's the information. I'll help you. Let me know what you need. First time having conversation with them. But you look at the call to rebuild the wall, and there's a lot of things about this, and you and I can talk about this some other time privately if you'd like, about what I think the wall indicates in more depth. But overall, let me generically say that a wall brings in border. It represents a line, right? It shows dominion, right? Past this line, you're on a different piece of ground now. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And I think it's time for the body. I think we're getting to the point now, and that's what I've been hearing for the past year, is that the body needs to come together, start rebuilding the wall, tool in one hand, weapon in the other. And once that wall is built, then the houses are built within. And the body, we've been talking for years now, but especially the past year and a half, of looking at what's going on in the world and what's going on around us, and speculating on what the spiritual implications are in terms of timeline. And, most of us are not trying to pinpoint anything, but we're saying things do look to be progressing, right? When you look at those verses, like that verse in Daniel 11 that talks about, amidst all this chaos, there's believers who are doing mighty, wondrous works. And it is a verse that's often skipped, but it's showing all this chaos of the king of the north and the king of the south. And in the middle there's a verse that's talking that there's believers doing mighty, wonderful works, miracles, signs and wonders that are actually of God, not the false prophet of Revelations, right? And I think that in order for the body to be even prepared for that position, we need to be coming together as a community. The body needs to start working together as a body. The hands need to start communicating with the feet, which means we need the knees and the elbows and everything in between to be in alignment and joined and working together. So yeah, I thought it was kind of neat that I'm feeling urged to do this calendar, not as this huge big thing or to make any money or anything like that, but maybe it'll get a small ball rolling in the right direction for what I can contribute to getting the body to come together a little bit. One of the other projects that I want to bring up and bring out, that I'm not going to go too much into detail on now because there's not too much to really go into detail on, is I want to re-spike up the Cheerful Givers group, which I had started a couple of years ago. Do you remember that?
Vaguely.
Yeah. So the whole idea of the Cheerful Givers was that it was to be a page, a section where people can come to, and we would have, anytime there's GoFundMes for believers, right? Whether we know them personally or not, if we know somebody who can vouch for them, if we know that they're a believer, somebody who's in need, we would post that there, so that this would be a page, a place that people can go to check once, twice a month, or maybe even once a week if they're, have a small bit that they're tithing, what have you, or they're feeling it pressed upon them. But the idea was that monthly and often weekly, we would be posting people who are in need. And instead of, I don't know about you, Chad, but you ever see these posts and they say so-and-so needs money, and then you look at it and it says that they need like $30,000 for this cancer treatment or something, and you're like, 30 grand, like all I have to give right now is like $15. I don't know if that's really going to make a drop in the pool at 30 grand. And I feel like there's the possibility that a lot of people feel discouraged from giving anything that they can give, because what is my $15 to 30 grand? So the idea of cheerful givers is that the premise is we're hoping that you come in and just, if it's $1, you give $1. And the idea is that if we as a community come together, if there was hypothetically 2,000 people who often check this group, often check this page and made it in their mind and their heart, you know what, once a week, I'm going to give $1. I'm going to see the 4 options that they have posted. I'm going to give $1. If you have 2,000 people doing that, Chad, some of these people need less than $2,000. Nobody's wallet is broken from this. You lost $1. I lost $1. So-and-so lost $1. But together, we just helped so-and-so find an apartment because their old apartment burned down. We were posting a lot and people were helping. But I'd like to reignite that. I feel like this is something the body would get behind if I were to push it a little bit more than I did before. So I have some things to promote that and some things like that. For the past couple of years, I have been purchasing a lot of extras of things, of books and DVDs and CDs and stuff. Never touched them, Chad. Brand new. I've got some CDs. It's got the wrap on it and stuff. I think I have one of your books that I bought as an extra to give away, and I haven't given it away yet. So I have a lot of these giveaway items that I want to do through that to promote. And I was thinking we were going to make some kind of deal of, if you post it on your page, promoting, asking people to come check the page out, then you get put in that week or that month. You get a point in, and then we'll draw at the end of the month. And then if you win, you can choose which item you'd like shipped to you, kind of thing.
I love it.
So I've got multiple projects. I have a few other projects in mind that are further back on the back burner. Right now, I'm working on the show and the calendar. And then once the show is up and running, which may be this weekend, depending, then I'd like to start pushing the calendar on that, but also reignite Cheerful Givers.
I just got real emotional, Duck. Disputed Lands has existed from the beginning to be a platform to share what the body of believers are doing. And a couple years ago, 2.5 years ago, no idea who Ian Fiaducci was. The first time I saw you, you're walking through Take on the World, and talk to me, but you don't know how. And I had a good chuckle because I knew you wanted to talk. Finally, you got the nerve or whatever. We came over and had a great discussion. And you shared with me the stuff you were doing just on a Facebook page, studies. And we got you on the show. And now you're, part of the Take on the World doing this. It is a fulfillment for me of everything God has asked me to do. And you're one of those people that, God has allowed me to be a avenue to bring forth in front of people, to introduce to the community, who is now taking it and running. Ian Chadrick, Aaron Sampson, both those fellows now off and running. I want to continue to do this. So it's, like I said, it's a short night tonight. It's what Disputed Lands is all about. When can we expect this show to launch, Duck?
Okay, so
I don't want to know about queso or cheese or anything else like that. When's the show? I'm just kidding.
Hey, queso can be quite wonderful. Yeah, don't diss the queso.
So when is it going to launch, buddy?
Okay, so I'm thinking this weekend. It's not official yet. I still got to talk to Chris. One of the things that we had discussed is coming on here and letting people know first. I'm ready to go this weekend. I have to run it through Chris and make sure. There's some things I got to ask him too on what I'm going to do about certain things. But last I checked, the time allotment that I threw my hat in for, that he said would not be a problem, would be Saturday nights at about 8 p.m. I think I'm going to be shooting for Saturdays at 8 p.m. and it'll probably be about an hour or so. And it's not going to be a set time, but that's probably going to be the averages from like an 8 to 9. That's 8 p.m. Eastern time, 8 p.m. my time. I don't know about anybody else who's listening, but So that's the goal right now, is that it'll be this Saturday, 8 p.m. would be the first show. But if it's not this weekend, then it'll most definitely be the next weekend.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, Duck, I certainly love you, brother. I certainly love your heart. I love your passion. It's inspiring for me, as I was just saying, to keep doing what I'm doing. And we, as brothers and sisters, I agree. I was actually sharing this at this last Take on the World. I feel a stronger desire and need for Take on the World community, brothers and sisters in general, but a community, that desire to keep my friends close has been growing as well, that we're able to get to each other, to know where each other live, to be figuring out ways to come together. It's just, there's that sense of desire that we need to be ready to help or gather, at any moment's notice, so to speak. I don't know how to put it into words, but that urgency, that desire has been growing more and more. And I thank you for sharing your thoughts, for sharing your heart with us. I can't wait to see what Yah has in store for us through the things that he's putting on your heart. And we're going to see more of that in the future. The rest of you, be considering the things that I said at the beginning of the show. Like I said, the short show tonight, short and sweet tonight. We need to raise $240 immediately right now to pay for this platform. That's come out of Take on the World TV's pocket, i.e. Chris and Liz, right now, to pay for it this year. And if you guys would be so kind as to reach out and say, hey, I can send a few bucks your way to help offset the cost of that for this platform that it is. Be in prayer with us about the future platform. And those of you who I know personally, please feel free to reach out and share your thoughts with me on that through whatever means of contact you have with me. Other than that, that's pretty much Disputed Lands in a nutshell.
See, now I know what you're really thinking. You're like, yep, Duck's coming on. It's going to be a nut show.
In a nutshell. I'm Chad Schaefer. This is Disputed Lands. It's another Monday night. Show love for the Duck. Show love to Chris and Liz. And we'll see you next time.
Shalom, shalom.
Shalom.
Get right, get inside, get hungry, word of God appetite. Everlasting water, never again thirsty. To disputed lands, take a journey. Get right, get inside, get hungry, word of God appetite. Everlasting water, never again thirsty. To disputed lands, take a journey. Get right, get inside, get hungry, word of God appetite.